This week on Animal Miracles. An English Mastiff rescued from years of abuse returns the favor to his human benefactor.
I was just very, very dizzy and very disoriented, shaking, sweating.
A police dog and his master face a deranged criminal on a crowded schoolyard.
I knew he was in the field directly behind the school, but I didn't know where exactly.
And a young girl with a debilitating spinal disease and the special horse that would change her life.
Immediately we noticed that her balance was already starting to improve.
These amazing stories and more, this week on Animal Miracles.
Usually, when we think of our police force, we think of those brave men and women whose job it is to protect and serve. But an integral part of today's crime-fighting team is the police service dog. They're as well-trained, as dedicated as any officer, and they often face the same dangers in the line of duty, performing the same heroic acts of courage. Here. The bond between police service dogs and their handlers transcends the usual human and pet relationship. It's a bond of trust, dedication, loyalty, and love of duty. And no one knows this better than Constable Randy Goss, a police officer in the K-9 unit of the Edmonton Police in Alberta, Canada.
Well, you know, I've always had a love for animals. You grow up with dogs in the family and everything else, but you sure get an eye-opener when you decide to take on an opportunity like working with a dog. A relationship and a bond with a working dog compared to, say, just the family pet at home is like night and day.
But when Randy brought Caesar home, it was clear from the start that he was going to be a member of the family.
I remember just marveling at this little Rottweiler puppy and what a great opportunity it would be to get a chance to hook up with him.
Randy's colleague, Constable Tom Stevens, remembers Randy's joy when he first met Caesar.
And I remember when Randy and I were both receiving dogs at the time, at first glance, I always said right away, he says, oh, I wanted to get the Rottweiler, I wanted to get the Rottweiler. Randy knew right away that was a dog for him.
And suddenly here I was with this Rottweiler puppy and elated beyond belief to have this chance to be with them.
Caesar was just 3 months old when he was assigned to Randy in September of 1992. After a year of intensive training, they hit the street together as a team.
You start to recognize what a huge responsibility it was going to be taking on this police service dog as a partner. When you're working with this animal day in and day out, it becomes quite a working relationship as well as a loving relationship, and you know, you become extremely close. They almost become an extension of you.
This extension was so strong that Caesar and Randy seemed to communicate with each other without the need for commands.
When dogs are in unknown territory, they quickly look to the handler, and we always refer that to Dad for the answers and some input of what do I do now. And all of a sudden I started recognizing, well, you know, Caesar's got this ability to sort of put things together now. He's not looking to me for all the answers. He knows this is what I got to do.
Randy soon learned that Caesar's single greatest trait was loyalty.
It's something you learn to depend on and respect, because you're in harm's way and all of a sudden the cavalry comes out of the car, you know, and no matter what happens, don't mess with my dad.
Good boy. On a school day afternoon in a downtown residential area, Principal Lori Pelkey was supervising a yard full of school children.
June 23rd, 1998 was our track and field and our fun day. The little ones in kindergarten to grade 3 were involved with
fun day and all sorts of games and activities near the playground. The grade 4 to 6 students were involved with races. During the one of the breaks, some of the teachers that were out with the grade 4 to 6 races kept commenting that they kept hearing what sounded like a backshot or the backfire of a truck.
But it was not a backfire. A disturbed young man who had been drinking heavily was roaming the streets armed with a shotgun. The gunman repeatedly put the barrel of the shotgun in his mouth and then randomly began firing shots into the air. As calls went out to on-duty officers all over the city, Randy Goss and Caesar were on patrol, just minutes away.
Quickly this call evolved, and before you know it, they were trying to set up command posts and set up perimeters so that our tactical section could become involved in this.
Dozens of police converged onto the scene, knowing that the gunman was rapidly making his way towards the school ground.
We had seen or recognized the fact that he was moving towards this elementary school, and frantic efforts were made to contact the school and bring children in who had actually been outside participating in a track and field event.
I looked outside the window and I could see that there was a police car on the sidewalk.
Yes, can I help you?
And all of a sudden, a policeman ran in. He said, "We need everyone inside. We need all the doors to the school locked."
I've got kids in the yard.
Randy Goss and his partner Caesar moved into position to protect the school grounds.
I could see a number of policemen and their dogs walking towards the school, and I saw the police officers before I saw the gunman.
By now, the gunman was moving in dangerously close to the schoolyard and the children. Tom Stevens and the rest of the officers still did not have a clear fix on his position.
I had no idea where the gunman was, other than I knew he was in the field directly behind the school, but I didn't know where exactly.
I need everyone inside, quickly!
There was kids that were getting hustled into the school as quick as possible, and it was quite chaotic.
I ran out, and of course there were a number of little kindergarten students with their parents outside waiting to go home for lunch. And again in my mind I'm thinking, what's happening? Why are the police here?
But in a blinding instance, Laurie saw exactly what was going on.
So as I focused, I looked over and I could see the gunman walking what appeared to be straight for me.
From his position, with Caesar straining at the leash, Randy Goss assessed the scene unfolding in front of him.
He obviously distraught. Obviously, as it turned out, you could see his pants pockets were full of what ultimately turned out to be ammunition. I think everyone at the call realized that there's no way we'd be able to allow him to gain access to that school.
Okay, we're gonna go into the library now. Go right on in.
Meanwhile, Tom Stevens knew that the time for a peaceful resolution to this dangerous situation was quickly fading.
We had tried our best to talk him out of dropping the weapon and giving up peacefully. And the line in the sand was drawn, and he crossed it.
Randy Goss and his partner Caesar steeled themselves for what they knew they had to do.
Caesar prepares to do his duty, despite overwhelming odds.
He would have seen a dog coming from a mile away at that point.
Look, I'm just gonna kill myself, okay?
When we return,
It's easy to forget when you see Caesar's picture as a puppy that his life ahead would be filled with risk as he performed his duties alongside his friends and fellow officers. And now in a suburban schoolyard, Caesar is about to lay down the law.
Back off! Back away!
Police officers were attempting to resolve an explosive scene in a residential school playground. K-9 Unit Officer Randy Goss and his partner Caesar were preparing to take the gunman down.
Immediately, Caesar became focused on this male, and he on 2 different occasions tried to leave the car to go after him, and I had to call him back to the car because it was just you were sending him to his death at that point you know, because he would have seen a dog coming from a mile away.
I'm just gonna kill myself, okay?
Caesar was very cognizant of the fact that this guy was the target. If there was ever a window of opportunity to hopefully ending what was unfolding here, this was probably going to be it. I felt that Caesar was, you know, experienced enough to know what I was expecting of him. It was clear that he knew who we were looking at, and what my feelings were is that he would be able to mow this guy down from behind before this guy really realized what had hit him.
Get away from me!
The gunman was now only yards from the entrance of the school and the terrified children inside.
As he became very close to entering the east doors, probably about 15 yards from the entrance itself, he became distracted by one of our members who was actually across near a playground to the southeast of us. And his back was actually presented to my direction. As Caesar closed within a few yards, the gunman realized the dog was approaching from behind. And as he closed in from behind, the gunman managed to spin around and got a round off. Down went my partner. The whole world had just crashed in around me.
No!
I remember forgetting, in fact, that there was a gunman. I just remember trying to run towards my animal and my partner and check on his welfare. And in doing that, the gunman ended up spinning around, racking in another shell and leveling it at me as I started to run from my partner.
The police had no choice but to return fire, wounding the gunman and saving Randy Goss's life. As officers raced to aid the suspect on the ground, Constable Tom Stevens reached Caesar first.
I remember Caesar looking up in my eyes, and he was still breathing, but he was having trouble, and his heart was still beating. And it's a long stare, like there's a friend. And I remember it felt like the dog was kind of looking at me, asking me, did I do okay? And I just remember looking at the dog and saying, yeah, you did great.
Fellow officers kept Randy Goss away as Caesar lay on the grass, barely breathing.
I need some help here.
Yeah, good boy.
You need a driver?
I tried to do some artificial respiration on the dog. He was having an awful lot of trouble breathing.
In a desperate attempt, Caesar was transported to the nearest veterinarian office.
Caesar stopped breathing, and we didn't make it. Probably about 2 minutes after I got to the vet, Randy came in the front door. I just remember looking at him, and I tried, buddy. It was tough.
The news about the shooting spread rapidly throughout the police community.
You know, within an hour of the shooting, whether you were on days off or guys were on holidays or whatever, almost every handler that we work with, unless they were, you know, way out of the city or whatever, was at the vet clinic, and we were all there, you know, as a family trying to sort of put the pieces together. And that was a huge comfort, because I could see it in every one of the guys' eyes, you know, this could have been my dog.
The response from people all over the city was overwhelming. It seemed everyone wanted to convey their thoughts and feelings about Caesar's heroic actions.
Caesar's kennel, which is in the back of the building with his name on it, it all of a sudden was filled full of flowers and cards, and you started to recognize just how much it had affected so many others.
I remember a young girl coming in who wanted to go see where Caesar, his kennel was in the back and where he stayed. And she brought an incredible picture that she had drawn at school. And I remember her crying in the back saying, "He died a hero. He died for us that day."
It is with great sorrow and sadness today that we are gathered here to pay a tribute to Caesar, a fallen member of our canine unit.
Police forces across Alberta and Canada, recognizing the crucial part played by Caesar in averting a tragedy, held a memorial service honoring one of their own.
It's clearly a miracle. For whatever reason, that particular day, Caesar and I were supposed to be at that place at that time. But I think potentially when you consider what could have gone so wrong, didn't. And you know, the fact that nobody else was killed in what had unfolded there is clearly a miracle. And I believe Caesar was the instrument that prevented that.
The gunman survived his wounds and is serving time in jail. And Officer Randy Goss still thinks about Caesar, his partner and friend, each and every day.
A small child, unable to walk since birth, meets a horse who will change their lives forever.
When I first met, I felt happy because I really wanted to be on a horse.
Stay with us for more Animal Miracles. Animal Miracles will continue.
We always assume that young people just like to hang out with their own age group. But wait till you meet Emily. She's a very young girl, and Dusty, a very old horse, and see what miracles love can perform. At the Pacific Riding Academy in British Columbia, you'll find a special kind of horse. Special horses like Dusty. Dusty has been around for a while, 32 years to be exact, but Dusty hasn't been out to pasture. Far from it. Dusty's a working horse. What makes Dusty unique is his natural ability to connect with people who need a strong back and a gentle disposition. Jesse Fraser with the Pacific Riding Stable's therapeutic riding program knows just how exceptional these animals really are.
They have very quiet temperaments and they're very friendly. Most of them have a background where they've just been there and done it all. We find that these old horses are just worth their weight in gold. They're the heart of the program. Therapeutic riding is known for its physical benefits. The movement of the horse duplicates the movement of the human walk. So for individuals who are in wheelchairs or who have difficulty moving in any way, it helps to develop the trunk and the pelvis area. And then from there, of course, it helps to strengthen your limbs also.
7 years ago, Jerry Anderson was told the news that her infant daughter, Emily, may never walk.
Emily was born with spina bifida and her back was open and the spinal cord was on the outside of her back. Immediately after delivery, they did surgery to repair as much as they could. The week of her first birthday, we were told she'd never walk. She was paralyzed, that you know, there was nothing else that they would be able to do for her.
And then Jerry heard about the therapeutic riding program. If Emily couldn't walk, then maybe she could ride. With renewed hope, she perched Emily on top of a donkey for the first time at the age of 2. But it wasn't a smooth ride.
For several weeks of sessions, she screamed the stable down. She cried the whole time.
I felt really scared, and I didn't feel like I really wanted to go on the horse. He is just shaking like an earthquake, shaking all around. Like he got scared and he went shaking like an earthquake.
Despite her initial fears, Emily persevered.
When Emily first started riding here, she was just the tiniest little kid. With spina bifida, especially at that age, they're kind of floppy. Kids have difficulty sitting up and just maintaining their balance on a horse. Therefore, you want a pony who's very kind of wide base, so a bit of wide in the back, so that it gives her more of a balancing apparatus. So we needed somebody that was a pony that was very quiet and very tolerant and friendly.
As Emily became a little more confident in the saddle, it was time to graduate from the donkey to a horse. And that's when Emily met Dusty, and it was love at first sight.
When I first met, I felt a little happy because it was my first time on a horse and I really wanted to be on a horse. Whoa, boy, whoa, boy.
Dusty was the perfect choice for Emily because of his quiet temperament. And he's quite wide through his back. It made it easier for Emily to balance on this horse. He has a nice slow walk and he's a very quiet pony.
Got your reins. What do we say to Dusty?
Walk on.
And from the first moment Emily took Dusty's reins, it was a miracle in the making.
The first couple of times that she rode Dusty, immediately we noticed that her balance was already starting to improve.
He's just saying, scratch harder, Em.
As time went on, Emily and Dusty became inseparable. Emily discovered something wonderful. Despite her tiny size, Dusty let her know that she firmly held the reins.
You're a good boy, Dusty. Sometimes I just talk him. If he doesn't want to do what I tell him to, I just talk him. Sometimes he doesn't listen to me when I say it, so I have to do the rein thing and turn him. He listens to the rein. Dusty feels really not afraid of me. How are you doing today? Oh.
She wants to hug him as soon as she comes into the stable. So she's got to be able to, care and love him, and he responds back to her, which is what she likes.
You just want to eat, don't you? Oh, Dusty, I don't have anything.
But even in the best relationships, things can get a little bit bumpy. When Emily rode Dusty in their first competition together, she took a tumble.
Dusty pulled his head back and looked at me. And then I said, okay, I'll get back on. Don't be spooked or anything again. I thought about that he wouldn't get spooked again, and I just went on with the competition.
And they rode away with blue ribbons. Dusty's exceptional ability to stay calm under pressure helped Emily realize that when you fall, you get right back on again.
The people assume because most of these old horses just have to walk around and be led around, they assume that it's a very easy lifestyle, but emotionally and mentally it is very difficult for a horse. Horses have that fight-flight instinct. If something frightens them, it is their instinct to react, either to run from it or to at least spook. And these horses know that they're not allowed to do that, so therefore they have to be really special horses. I believe the horses can sense that these children are a little more fragile than others.
Emily and Dusty became not just horse and rider, but they became an extension of each other.
I think Emily and Dusty have a really strong friendship bond with each other. Definitely the trust is there that is needed for her to be comfortable with him. They know each other, that she's riding him, that he's really a gentle horse with her.
And it was from Dusty's gentleness that Emily was finding her great strength.
I'm gonna keep riding horses because I haven't quite learned how to walk yet.
But why walk anywhere when you can run?
Emily became a very determined little girl. She went from her wheelchair to a walker, and from a walker to crutches. And she now not only walks but runs.
In the 4 years that Emily and Dusty have been together, her physical, mental, and emotional condition has progressed far beyond the doctor's grim medical prognosis of 7 years ago. Jerry has no doubt that it was Dusty who changed the course of Emily's life.
For us, it's been the horseback riding that's given her the ability to walk.
Emily is truly a miracle. She really is, because the fact that she can walk and run independently and has become such an open and friendly child and is exceptionally bright. And I truly believe that with the help of the horse to help build that confidence, that was a huge part of it.
He's such a great pony because he always listens to me, and every time I give him a treat, he puts his head on my shoulder. So that makes me feel really happy, and that makes Dusty feel really happy. You're a good boy today, Dusty.
No one can really explain the powerful bond between Emily and Dusty. All we know is that, just like her horse, today a young girl can run like the wind.
When we return, these large endangered manatees from Florida receive much-needed medical care. But one special manatee shows her human keepers a miraculous act of kindness.
In our next story, we look into the lives of those very shy and beautiful sea mammals, the manatees. Now, sadly, they are endangered, but there are many dedicated people now helping them survive. Despite their enormous size, they are vulnerable. But as you'll see, manatees have a surprising capacity for affection. Just below the surface of Florida's inland waters are large, gentle creatures called manatees. These prehistoric-looking mammals, distant relatives of the elephant, have floated through these warm waterways for millions of years, quietly grazing on aquatic plants, threatened by no one, except people. Every year, hundreds of manatees are maimed or killed by speedboats, propeller blades, and fishing lines. And no one knows the terrible plight of these massive, mild-mannered vegetarians better than Betsy Dirth, a park ranger at Homosassa Springs State Wildlife Park, a manatee sanctuary.
You see, they don't have any teeth. You watch Ariel smile back here. They don't have any teeth in the front. They have this hard, bony palate in the front.
For 15 years, Betsy has nursed hundreds of sick, injured, and orphaned manatees. But she's not the only one nurturing these gentle sea grazers. For 21 years, this freshwater spring has also been home to Aunt Rosie, whose maternal instinct is as big as she is.
She was brought in captivity in the 60s. She came here in 1980, so she was in captivity a long time before she came here. And they thought she had a little bit of an equilibrium problem because she did a lot of circling. They figured she wasn't releasable. Rosie's our biggest manatee we have here. We call it kind of the queen of all the manatees.
At 3,000 pounds, Rosie's the gentlest creature around, and self-appointed mother to all the orphaned manatees that end up at Homosassa.
I think Rosie's unusual. If we have a baby manatee born in here, Rosie will want to babysit for it. You'll see Rosie nursing the baby. You'll see Rosie swimming side by side with the baby, coming up for air together with the baby, and she's just like the mother.
Betsy believes that there may be a reason for Rosie's unique behavior.
What What makes Rosie so maternal would probably be the fact that, well, she did give birth to twins, but they didn't survive. She'll always try to take care of a young baby when it's born in here. Rosie's the one that nurtures all the younger manatees.
And sadly, most of the newcomers to Homosassa are young manatees, battered survivors of boat propellers, fish hooks, and lines. Pedro Ramez Navarrete, an animal care specialist at Seaworld, spends much of his time rescuing injured manatees in the wild.
Manatees' lifespan is believed to be as much as 60 years old. Unfortunately, they're facing a lot of problems out in the natural environment, so you don't really find animals that are that old.
Pedro remembers the day he heard about a young manatee in distress.
We received a call about a manatee that had fishing line wrapped around one of its flippers.
Pedro and the Seaworld rescue team found a young, terrified manatee floundering in the shallow waters near a marina. She was unusually feisty when they tried to net her, earning her the name Electra.
She was not a weak animal. At that time, she was weighing, I recall, about 730 pounds. So you get 730 pounds trying to go the opposite direction, you've got a good fight on your hands.
With some difficulty, the team transported her to the Seaworld clinic. Closer examination showed that Electra was in poor shape.
When she first came in, we had to tube feed her. She wasn't eating on her own.
And Electra's wound caused by the fishing line was severe.
We did a closer examination, and it had cut all the way down into the bone. And it had been there for a while, so we took her to surgery. We removed the fishing line, sutured her up.
But the fishing line turned out to be the lesser of Electra's problems.
We had noticed that she had a little depression in her back. We did a series of x-rays on her, and we could tell that there was a lot of scarring there. And this actually turned out to be what caused her buoyancy problems.
Manatees control their buoyancy by the amount of air they have in their lungs.
They have very large lungs, runs about 3/4 of the length of the body. She may have been caught in a flood control gauge. She may have been hit by a boat, not by the propeller to where it would cut her, but by the hull. The impact alone could have caused a lot of damage.
The deep scars along Electra's back showed that her lungs were severely damaged. She couldn't regulate the amount of air they contained.
She wasn't able to easily stay on the surface like you see some of the other manatees resting on the surface or feeding effortlessly. She actually had to make a very strong effort to come up to the surface.
Electra's a sinker. If she swims into deep water, she may not have enough energy to make it back to the surface.
She was an animal that was going to have to be in a shallow water area.
Knowing that Electra couldn't survive in the wild, Pedro sent her to the shallow pools of Homosassa Springs and hopefully to the gentle care of Aunt Rosie.
It was a little bit nerve-wracking when she first came because she'd swim over by the deep water and she'd go down to the bottom of the spring here.
And just as they had hoped, Rosie immediately sensed that Electra needed her. Without hesitation, she became her constant guardian.
Rosie will always look out for her. You'd see Electra resting on Rosie's back a little bit when she was eating in the salad box.
Rosie and Electra have developed a deep bond over the past 2 years. Now they're almost inseparable. Sensing Electra's fragility, Rosie is always around, making sure that Electra never strays too far. The manatees at Homosassa Springs are the lucky ones. These gentle giants have a chance to live their lives out of harm's way. Most days now, Electra floats in the safe, shallow pools of the spring. But when she does venture into deeper waters, Rosie's never far behind.
When we return, an enormous dog with an even bigger heart.
By the time somebody found me, it probably would have been too late.
Find out why some dog owners believe bigger is better. Next on Animal Miracles.
We human beings have always had a special relationship with animals ever since they first joined us around the campfire. Our connection is undeniable, but today more than ever, we marvel at the mysterious ways that animals continue to make that connection. We begin with the story of a giant of a dog and his enormous capacity for love and devotion to his owner. An English Mastiff is 180 pounds of lumbering hair and drool. Badly abused from the time he was a puppy, Zeus was rescued from a pound in New York City by the Mastiff Club of America, ending up in the care of Lila Wills, a foster volunteer for Mastiff Rescue in Virginia.
Mastiffs are described as the gentle giant, and they're very loyal, they're very large, and the one thing that I love about them is that they are so gentle and they're so caring.
Nell Wright had just moved to North Carolina, and she was looking for a dog to share her new life.
One of the reasons I bought a house was because I wanted to get a big dog. I was looking around for something that might not be so miserable in a North Carolina summer, and I thought, Mastiff would be a good choice.
So Nell thought she'd check out the internet, where she found Lila's site and a face that she couldn't get out of her mind.
Then I thought, well, I'll just see what's available as far as rescue dogs go. And I saw Zeus's picture and was immediately drawn to it. He looked exactly like the mental image I had of the dog I wanted.
But one thing troubled Nell. As a giant breed, Mastiffs generally have a lifespan of only 10 years, and Zeus was getting up there.
And then I saw, 8 years old, and I thought, no, you don't want to do that. He'll be gone in a couple of years, and you'll end up being heartbroken. But I couldn't get his face out of my mind, so I thought, well, I'll contact Lila and just see. And so I emailed her when I had experience with large dogs, and hair all over the carpet and drool all over the walls, wouldn't put me off.
But there was a hitch. Despite his advancing years, Zeus was already spoken for.
He was supposed to be adopted that weekend, and she sent me an email, said, we'll find another dog, and I thought, I don't want another dog, I want Zeus.
But it seemed to be destined that Zeus and Nell would end up together. The new home didn't work out.
They were supposed to adopt him that Saturday, and I got a phone call from Lila Saturday night, and she said, are you still interested?
After weeks of waiting, the big day finally came. Nell and Zeus met for the first time in the flesh.
I was really, really nervous. I thought, what if he doesn't like me? He didn't know me, and I didn't know him.
But within moments of meeting her, Zeus put Nell's fears at ease.
I was petting him and talking to him, and about halfway home, he got up and he came and lay down next to me, and he put his head on my leg, and that's when I knew it was going to work out.
But despite getting off to a good start, Nell began to notice that Zeus seemed to carry a lot of bad memories with him.
It's obvious he was badly mistreated. On one occasion, I picked up a yardstick, and as soon as I picked the stick up, he ran, and it was very obvious he expected to be beaten.
There's a possibility that Zeus was used in dogfighting. He has a lot of scars on his legs and some around his head.
Despite the horror of his past, Zeus continued to show that he had a heart as big as his massive body.
Just in the past year or so, he seems eager to meet other people, you know, instead of just basically ignore them. He loves kids, little kids. I've taken him to the park and had, you know, little bitty ones that don't even come up to his nose, come charging up and grab him. And he just stands there, you know, with the tail wagging back and forth and a big smile on his face.
And over time, Zeus proved that he was much more than an aging companion living out his final years. As a diabetic, Nell's blood sugar level went up and down, and lately she had been having some problems regulating it.
And that particular night, I took my normal dose of insulin, and you know, I felt fine.
But things were not fine. In the middle of the night, Zeus sensed that something was not right with Nell. He tried to wake her, but she was groggy and slow to respond.
I was very, very groggy and very dizzy. And he was barking very loudly. He was nudging me with his nose in the face, and then he'd stand back and he'd bark some more. I was real out of it, and he wouldn't stop. He just kept on barking and kept on nudging me.
Instinctively, Zeus would not let Nell push him away.
I have no idea how long he was barking and poking me before I came to. I was just very, very dizzy and very disoriented, shaking, sweating. And when I have an insulin reaction like that, if it's very severe, I'm not thinking at all. It's like the brain is gone. Sometimes I don't even know what's going on until it's progressed to the point where I'm almost passing out.
Refusing to let Nell fall back to sleep, Zeus kept nudging her. Finally, she did what he wanted her to do.
I keep a bag of gumdrops next to the bed, and as soon as I started eating the candy, he lay down and stopped with the woofing and the nudging.
As Nell ate the candy, her blood sugar levels began to rise, stabilizing her condition. When her mind started to become clear, she realized what Zeus had done.
He'd seen me having reactions before, but I never dreamed that he would make the connection like that. By the time somebody found me, it probably would have been too late. I'm convinced that he did save my life that night.
Now Zeus doesn't take any chances. He's become Nell's full-time guardian angel.
After that, he started checking on me every night. He would come in and just, you know, give me a little nudge and look. It seems like he was just making sure that I was okay. And I would wake up and, you know, see his face like right there. I would say hi, Moose, or something, you know, reach out and pet him, and then he would go back and curl up and go back to sleep.
Despite the darkness of his past, Zeus has shown Nell that he was born to be not a fighter, but a caregiver with an enormous capacity for love.
It's just a miracle that I got him, and a miracle for what he did. You look at the background he came from, who would expect something like that?
Well, that's our show, but we'll be back soon with more true stories about animal miracles. Until then, please be kind to animals. They deserve it, and they enrich our lives in so many miraculous and wonderful ways. I'm Alan Thicke, and we'll see you next time. Right?